Let's go, Tim. So welcome. I'm going to call the Issaquah Recovery Task Force to order at 4 p.m. on Thursday, May 7th. Welcome, all of you. Thank you so much for volunteering to serve on this task force. This is our first meeting, and I do have a hard stop at 5:30 p.m. today because we have stacked meetings back to back. First thing I want to do is thank all of you for so eagerly raising your hand when I sent out a call for help earlier. This community has an amazing amount of volunteers in it, and I appreciate that you are giving me this time and giving your community this time over the next several months to help us work on our new reality. So thank you all for doing that. It was an amazing amount of people who volunteered. So the reason we are meeting is because the impact of the COVID-19 virus has had an unprecedented impact on every aspect of our lives. So much of our regular business and routines have stopped. However, now we're beginning to see some movement to reopen, and resuming of many of the activities of our lives will still continue to be impacted by the virus for the foreseeable future. I created this Issaquah Recovery Task Force with my administrative team to help advise me and the city on how best to reopen Issaquah, address many of the new issues that we now face as a community, and how best to resume many of the activities that we've had to stop over the past few months. So the city will be following a phased approach as outlined by Governor Inslee. As each phase is reached, there will be many issues of implementation. Some of these will be addressed by the state and federal guidance, but other guidance will be local to Issaquah and to King County. So today, I hope that we can accomplish several tasks in our first meeting. First, I want to hear from you about why you volunteered for the task force and any general concerns you want to bring to the group. And then next, I would like to have City Administrator Wally Bobkowitz give an interview of what the city has done and will be doing to address the crisis. Then I would like to begin hearing from each of you on the issues that need to be addressed by the city and our community to move forward. These ideas will form an Issaquah Recovery Task Force work plan, and that will serve as the framework for the city's efforts over the next several months. I'm going to go through some meeting guidelines and rules and the city clerk is going to go through some meeting guidance and rules and expectations. Also, Tina, I wonder if we could take a moment at this time for me to introduce the city staff that is on and participating today. So if you will wave as I mention your name. We have City Administrator Wally Bobkowitz. We have Joanne Biscara of the Mayor's Office. We have Tina Eggers from our City Clerk's Office. Tisha Gieser from our City Clerk's Office. Not on the video with us, but working in the background, we have Gus Tawana and Tim Schaefer. And I think I've cut all the city staff. If I miss somebody, then poke me. So Tina, I think you are up next to talk about our meeting guidelines.
Thank you. I'm going to hand this over to Tisha, who can talk through the protocol guidelines. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tisha Gieser, the Deputy Clerk. We got to meet yesterday during the test calls. I'm just going to cover a few sort of administrative aspects to the task force. The first being that we started an email for the group, which is recovery@issaquahwa.gov. We'll be using that email group to communicate your meeting agendas and materials. You may also receive some input from the community as we're sharing that email address on your meeting agendas, so folks can reach out to you if they have input on the task force's work. If you have material or information you'd like to share with the task force, please send it to your staff liaison, which is Joanne Biscara in the Mayor's Office, and she'll disperse it to the task force. This ensures that you're abiding by the Open Public Meetings Act, which Tina will talk about more in a little bit. As far as the meeting goes, there will be an agenda for each of the meetings. Your agendas will be published to the city's website and shared with you via link, just like our other boards and commissions. The group will fall under the authority of Robert's Rules of Order, just like our other city boards and commissions in the case of any parliamentary situations. The mayor obviously is serving as the chair of the group and your facilitator, so she'll be moving you through the agenda topics. She'll also be ensuring that the debate and discussion stays courteous and on topic and remains equitable among all of you. I imagine that most of your time together will be discussion, but there may come a time for a formal recommendation, in which case a motion and vote may occur. Votes will be taken by roll call, someone calling out your name. All regular members will participate in a vote. If any regular members are absent, an alternate may vote. That brings me to the point of attendance. I know that none of us can travel much of anywhere at the moment, but if you have any scheduling conflicts in the coming weeks or months with these meetings, please give as much advance notice as possible to Joanne by email so that we can ensure we have a quorum of the task force and can reach out to the alternates. If you have an unexpected last-minute absence, please do your best to notify Joanne or city staff so that we can indicate your excusal. We understand things occasionally come up. As far as the technical components, we covered most of those yesterday, but just as a reminder, and as the mayor mentioned, these videos are and audio of the meetings are being streamed live and recorded and are accessible on the city's landing page on our website. So if you miss a meeting, that will be a good resource for you. Minutes will also be taken, but they'll really focus on any action. If you have connection issues, we love being able to see you and hear you, but if you're having issues, please disable your video. And if you continue to have issues, just disconnect from your computer and call in using the phone number that was provided as an alternative. If we see that you've dropped from the meeting, we will need to proceed if we still have a quorum of the group, which is 6 of you, and just do your best to reconnect to the meeting. We understand there are challenges with this meeting format. And with that, I'll turn it back to you, Madam Mayor.
Madam Mayor, you are muted.
Oh. Make sure everyone who has not worked on Board of Commission before is okay with the format that we're using. It's Robert's Rule of Order. We have our clerk and our deputy clerk here, and they'll help us through this process. So be comfortable. If you have questions, just check in and tell us what you need to know. So the next thing on our agenda this evening is public comments. And Tisha, this is our first meeting, but I'm wondering if we had anybody sign up for public comments this evening.
I'm conferring with Joanne here. I don't believe we had anyone sign up to speak. It looks like that's correct. No one signed up this evening.
And that kind of makes sense because, it's a very quick startup. Thank you all. But I'm assuming we will, as we start to move through these different phases of reopening and making different recommendations, there will be folks in the community who will want to weigh in. So now for introductions. I'd like to go around and have each task force member answer a couple of questions. Tell us a bit about yourself, and you volunteered to be on this task force, and what are you hoping to accomplish? So I will get my notes out of the way, and I'll just kind of move around the room, and let's start with Brookie. Hi, Brookie.
Hi there.
There you go.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Brookie Scholl. I'm originally from Chicago. My family and I have lived here for 7 years now in Issaquah. I work at Microsoft as the chief of staff to the CFO, and I'm on Microsoft's COVID-19 task force. I've also been serving as the president of the Tallis Residential Association for the past 3 years. My goal is to help our community navigate through this tough time and to get to a quicker recovery by connecting the dots between things I'm learning through other methods and programs that I'm involved in. And even through this, even though this is new to everybody, when possible, hoping to use a process or idea that has already been developed instead of reinventing the wheel so we can get to a faster recovery.
Thank you so much, Brookie, and welcome. Grace, you're up.
Awesome, thank you. This is Grace speaking. So I am actually a sophomore at UC Berkeley studying business, and I graduated from Issaquah High in 2018. And I was really excited to be a part of this opportunity because I feel like youth members don't always get a voice in these sort of things, and I was really excited to just kind of bring that unique perspective. And my goal in this task force is to, one, make sure that we do this in a way that's equitable for people that are disproportionately affected right now. And two, to make sure that we do it in a like a effective way where we don't see another spike in new cases after. So making sure we're very, very careful and intentional with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Grace, but I'm going to have you add a little more information. What is it that you did when you came home for school to help out in your community? There's a great story there.
Well, I came home in mid-March, and I started this organization called Shopper Next Door, which matches local volunteers with high-risk neighbors who might need an extra hand right now, and we help with tasks like grocery delivery, prescription pickup, but anything in between that as well. And we currently have a team of over 45 volunteers right now, and have worked with like around 15 clients on a weekly basis, just helping them get groceries in with other errands.
That is amazing. Thank you. And your team.
Thank
you. Jason.
Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to meet all of your friendly faces for the most part. A few of you I know. Been in the Pacific Northwest most of my life. Been in Issaquah for the past 14 years. So, and also a part of a family business, a small business, which unfortunately, as you've seen, have been pretty much decimated by the coronavirus. It was one of the things that led me to want to join the task force, is to help our small businesses, as they are the backbone not only of our community, but indeed our entire nation. We were fortunate. We only had to stay home for a little bit, but it's heartbreaking to think of all the restaurateurs, all of the small retail shops that our old city is basically the lifeblood of. So my goal, hopefully, for this task force is to find something that's sustainable. I think we're all hoping for the best outcome, but ultimately being prepared for this thing being a part of our lives for the foreseeable future. And I'd like to find something sustainable for our small businesses, because everyone who's driven through our beautiful old town knows that these are small retail shops. These are small restaurants. This is basically our tourist area. And right now it's closed, and it's so difficult because it's so beautiful outside. So finding something that's sustainable and workable, if unfortunately this scourge reappears later in the year or into next year.
Thank you, Jason, and welcome. Marisol.
Hello, everyone. My name is Marisol Fischer, and I have been living in Issaquah for the past 10 years. I am originally from Mexico, from a place called Villahermosa, Tabasco, in the southeast. We moved to Issaquah because of work for my husband, and we love it. It's our home. Two of my girls were born here. I have three children, three girls. So ranging from 15 to four and a half. I work for the Issaquah Schools Foundation with a program called Cultural Bridges. I'm the program manager, and we focus to help families who, like myself, didn't grow up in the American school system, just navigating resources. What else? What do I'm tempting to bring to the table my voice, the voice of many people who I work with, and I know that they are hurting very badly right now. I also hope to, through their experiences, bring some, just try to understand where we are and try to as a community come together. I think that's it, right? Anything else?
No, thank you, Marisol. Welcome.
Thank you.
Pavel.
Hi, everyone. So I've been living in Issaquah for the past 11 years. I have a PhD in molecular biology with 30 years experience working in basic science. And me and my wife are also business owners. So we own a Sunnybrook Montessori School in downtown Issaquah for the past 11 years. And I think my main goal was joining this task force was because we've been open throughout all this every single day. So we never closed, even though number of children and families that keep coming was extremely low. But what I see, people not getting enough information and education about the current condition, and a lot of people are scared.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's part of our work should be really educate people so they are not scared, because that blocks a lot of positive movement in our society. So, and I'm thinking that my experience in science and as a business owner will be probably helpful to the city with our view, to help us, move forward faster and much more efficient than it could be done otherwise.
Thank you, Pavel, and welcome. Trish. You are still on mute. There you go.
There we go. Okay. Can you hear me okay now? Okay. Well, like people have said before, I'm really glad to be able to be sitting here and meeting this new peer group. My background, I've been part of the Issaquah community for over 30 years. The last 20, I've been a resident up in Issaquah Highlands. I've been on the Arts Commission for, I'd have to ask Tina now, but I think over 15 years. And that's my channel that I was brought into this task force with. Gosh, this is such an unprecedented time. I love the community. I'm a news addict, so as I'm gardening, I'm listening to everything that's going on COVID related. I want to do everything I can to learn about what's going on and to help the community I love. I mean, we're never going to be the same. So our new normal, I mean, it'll be a new normal, but it needs to be a good normal. So I look forward to helping our community get there.
Thank you, Trish. And I wanted to especially show you my appreciation. I know you've also been working with one of our nonprofits, Downtown Issaquah Association, and you've been making phone calls to businesses. And those are the kinds of activities that we're going to have to do in order to get some of our work done. So thank you for doing that work. Appreciate it. Welcome.
Yes.
Miss Milligan, Nina.
Hello, this is Nina Milligan. Can you hear me? Excellent. I live in Issaquah Highlands. We moved there in 2004, and that's where I work as well. I work for Highlands Council in Issaquah Highlands, and I've been involved with that community and the city ever since I moved here, and served on a handful of boards and commissions and volunteer teams and groups. I'm currently the chair of the Transportation Advisory Board. And in the past, I had the honor of serving for 2 years on the city council. So that was fun too. Did I miss anything, Mary Lou? Yeah, I think that's it. That's enough.
It's a long list.
Yeah, sorry. And what would I like to accomplish? Just a real simple and holistic approach to helping to chart a course to a sustainable future There are so many things for us to take into account, and I'm appreciative and look forward to the diversity and the scope of this and how it will touch so many parts of the city. And just looking to make sure that whatever we do is something that puts us in a good place going forward, not just recovering from where we are.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. That's
Thank you. Going forward and being better. Welcome. Hi, Mike. Do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm sorry, did you say Issaquah?
Not yet, Psychat. I said Mike, but Mike's microphone is still muted. Joanne, are you able to unmute Mike?
There we go.
There we go. There we go.
I had two microphones on my screen. Sorry about that. Anyway, my name is Mike Brennan. Welcome, everybody, and nice to meet you all. I have served on the Development Commission for over 10 years. I lost track, so I'm not quite sure the exact number now, but it's been a while, and it has been a very rewarding experience there. I've grown up in Washington, over in Eastern Washington. I've lived in this area for about 34 years now. These are challenging times for everybody, and it's impacting us all differently, some much more dramatically than others. And so it really requires us to think about how do we address the whole range of the population and how this COVID-19 pandemic is changing our lives. I also find it rewarding to work with people that share a similar interest or commitment, which is the group that's on the screen right now. And I look forward to working with all of you for the next few months, and Mayor Polly with you as well, as you lead us through this conversation. So that's it about me.
That is great. Welcome, Mike. Thank you. Marlene, up next.
Hi, everybody. I'm Marlene Waxy. I've lived in Issaquah for almost 4 years. Came here from Minnesota, and my husband's a Kansan, so Midwest folks here in the Pacific Northwest, which we love. We really wanted to be, or I wanted to be on this task force for several reasons. One, we've just really loved the community that Issaquah is, and just being a part of it, and how welcoming it's been for us, and how we've felt a part of the community. Currently on the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee, and I'm very passionate about the outdoors and outdoor recreation, and also activities for everyone, especially kids. So really want to think about how we continue to open up safely all the amazing recreation that we have here. I'm also very interested in how we can work on our economic recovery while maintaining that safety, especially for our most vulnerable populations, and also the essential workers that would have to go back in those environments. So those are the things that I'm really interested in being a part of this committee. My husband works in travel and I work in retail, so we're definitely impacted by everything going on. So I think I can bring that perspective as well.
Thank you, Marlene, and welcome. Shashi, you're up next.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Shashi Kulkarni, and I'm a retired scientist with 25 plus years of experience in the field of biometry, that includes epidemiology, public health, and disease burden. I did attend a workshop of Chris Murray, by the way, in 2001. And I live here since 2004, and I love it. And I was for 13 years on Squawk Mountain, and now in Providence Point, enjoying my quiet retired life. And I do have masters in biometry, bachelor's in chemistry, another bachelor's in school education, science and maths, and some computer science courses, and lots of experience. And my reason to join this and volunteer for this task force is I'm very much interested in this subject, no doubt. This is for the first time in our lifetime we are going to experience this kind of pandemic, which will be written in history. And I do see a lot of things on the news which concern me. And a lot of it is about how people don't understand the disease, as Pavel said rightly. We do need a lot of information so that people are comfortable with it. And my goal is to come out and help contribute to our task force in a way to come out with a transitional strategic planning, which can change and we can tweak it depending upon the data, such that we achieve a goal. And our goal is to have zero new cases until we have prevention or treat. And when we have prevention, it's better we have prevention, because having a treatment is still a disease burden. Having a prevention is lesser of a burden. And I believe that with patience and cooperation of everybody and taking very careful steps, we can definitely achieve it. It's controllable. We do have a lot of good technology. We are very lucky about it. So let us see how much I can contribute, because I had been out of work for many years, enjoying I love bridge, brain games, traveling, science, and other programs I watch on TV. I like to always increase my knowledge, even tribal lives. And that's all about me. I love life. I want to live, and nobody wants to die. That's the fact of life.
Welcome, Shashi. We're very glad to have you. Shashi has not served on a border commission before, so she'll have to get used to the rhythm of our meetings, but we're so glad to have you. I'm going to go to Ron. Ron, tell us a bit about yourself and what you hope to accomplish on the task force. There we go.
All right, so hi all, thanks for having me on, and thanks for everybody for coming today. I've lived in Issaquah for 10 years. I'm serving on the Policy and Planning Commission. I'm also on the Board of Directors for Visit Issaquah. I've got an MBA in business from Sacramento State. And I was working at Microsoft up until last month, and I was a program analyst or program manager there. And my background is business analyst. And I have some background also in marketing. What I want to get out of this is really more about what I can help contribute. I love Issaquah and care a lot about the community. I want to do what I can to support the community through this difficult and scary ordeal, and help us identify what our new normal may look like, because we're not ever going back to a normal. So what is new normal, and how are people going to be able to deal with that? My mom is 87. She lives in University House. She is frustrated, worried, and frightened, and most of her residents are as well. So that might be some value add that I might be able to bring to the table. But otherwise, I'm going to do what I can to support everyone here as a alternate.
Thank you, Ron. We are so glad to have you. Welcome. Issaquah, it's up to you now.
Hello, everybody. My name is Issaquah. You can call me Sam, although. Briefly about myself, I've lived in Issaquah Highlands for the last 16 years. I'm a manager at Microsoft and Azure. I do a lot of engineering and data sciences and artificial intelligence and all that stuff. I also serve on EVC. I've served on EVC for the last 3 years. And as to why I volunteered, it's a very simple answer, right? I mean, people are hurting, small businesses are hurting, and I want to make a difference. That's it. That's it for me.
Sam, that's great. Thank you very much. I know most of you, but there's a few that I don't know. So I'll give a quick little bio about me. I moved to Issaquah in 1993 from Toronto, Canada, and I have a degree in civil engineering. I've worked or volunteers for cities since I was 15 years old. Cities are a very happy place for me to be. When I came to Washington State, I actually practiced environmental engineering for about 20 years, and I got to work with Mike Brennan for most of his time on the Development Commission. I started serving in 1994 and stepped off in 2014. Saw a lot of the city getting built. I did apply for a couple vacancies on council and got turned down. So a couple of strikeouts before I actually ran and did get a seat on council. So there's an encouraging story for everybody. You got to fall down a few times before you can actually get there. And 3 years ago, I decided to run for mayor. So I am in my third year, and I've been complaining grievously to my city administrator that my whole chapter, my whole mayor's handbook chapter on pandemic never got written. And I don't know how to do this. And this is really hard. And there's so many things that are economically challenging, that are creating fear in the community, that are creating frustration and anger. And some of my emails I get a little bit of rebellion. And so it is really bizarre out there right now. And it's very likely that we will not be the same when we come out the other end of this, and hopefully never get caught off guard like we got caught this time. I mean, this is really tough. So the fact that you're all volunteering to help me get through this and write that chapter of the handbook is super helpful. I'm going to go back to my notes right now, and I think the next one up, we are going to go to our reports section, and that will put City Administrator Wally Bobkowitz up, and he's got a PowerPoint presentation for you. We're hoping to give you some context and a little more information about where the city's at and what we've been going through. Wally.
Great. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Hello, everyone. Thank you as well for joining. What I'd like to do is walk you through a presentation that kind of recaps where the city of Issaquah has been over the last 60 or 75 days. So I'm going to do my best to share my screen. And Joanne, if you could let me know if I'm successful or not.
Yes, we are seeing your screen.
Well, that's great. All right, so I just have to do slideshow here. Pressure with all the Microsoft employees on the call, so I don't want to show the product not properly. There we go. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about what our operational response has been to the COVID-19 crisis. We're going to talk a little bit about what we have already done as a city to deal with the budget implications of this, and we also we'll be talking a little bit about what's next. Certainly, lots on this task force's plate, lots of issues to consider. So I want to try to give a little flavor from at least a city staff perspective of what we think some of the issues are that we're going to have to grapple with. The mayor issued an emergency proclamation on March 6th. The state and King County issued proclamations a few days before that. What really prompted our proclamation, and this all seems so long ago, was the original cases that were first in Kirkland, and then there were cases at a long-term care facility here in Issaquah. And once the long-term care facility here in Issaquah had a case, that was the mayor's judgment that at that point we needed to move forward with the emergency as well. So we very quickly had to convert our way of doing business. Really, within a week or so, we had the majority of our office-bound staff working at home. Obviously, we have a number of employees cannot do their job from home, so we needed to be thoughtful about how we protected them. We took our public works operations department, the folks that worry about water, sewer, storm drains, street improvements, and split them into two so that the people who knew how to operate the traffic signals were not riding around in a car as they always did day after day. One was working for 2 weeks and one was home, and then we switched. So we really separated into two separate operations departments, and that has worked very well for us. And now we are looking at changing that to go back to one operation with scattered shifts, and we can certainly talk more about that if you're interested. Certainly public safety has been a big part of this. Our police department also began working a little bit more scattered shifts as they were dealing with things. Certainly, as you all know, we were hit hard very much at the top of this, while the rest of the country was still wondering what COVID-19 was. We were having the outbreak in Kirkland, which quickly traveled here, and so we really have been on the forefront of the public health, public safety piece of COVID-19 since the very beginning.
The Administrator Bob Kowitz, I'm just going to step in for a second. I forgot to do one of my duties. If you have not already opened the memo comment bar, please do that. It is the, is it a blue button on everybody's screen? The chat button. That is a place where you can state that you have a question. And when there's a little break point in the presentation, we'll get the question answered. So if you have a question, please put it over on the chat bar. Sorry, Wally.
And Madam Mayor, you'll stop me for questions?
Yes. Yes,
okay,
I will.
very good. So as we started into the crisis, it was clear that there was some initial actions that Mayor Pauly wanted to move forward and take right away. First was a moratorium on residential tenant late fee payments. Things were scrambling. People were concerned if they were unable to pay their rent, would there be enormous late fee payments? So the mayor, through her emergency powers, issued a proclamation declaring a moratorium on those fee payments. A few days later, Governor Inslee moved forward with his moratorium on changes in rent. So that was something that happened very early. Also, something that happened very early was issues regarding using reusable shopping bags at grocery stores. We have an ordinance that provides for a fee for the use of bags, and so we wanted to make sure that people were safe, that they didn't feel that they needed to use their reusable bags. So we passed an ordinance, or Mayor passed a proclamation suspending the pass-through charge. The paper bags are still required. We have been dealing with this issue. Those of you who have been grocery shopping in Issaquah may notice from time to time the paper bags disappear and plastic bags return, and that is also not allowed under local ordinance. So we've worked carefully with the grocery store chains to make sure they continue to use paper bags despite the fact that the fee has been suspended. With the number of people who are grocery shopping, they're having some bag issues, and so we've been trying to work closely with them. And quite honestly, this may be an issue for this task force to talk about at some point, because as we wait for the state of Washington to have its own laws regarding the use of plastic bags, that we may need to take some additional action. So that's something to think about. And then on March 26th, the mayor made a proclamation allowing small businesses, those with gross receipts last year under $3 million, to defer their business and occupations tax. So that is a major source of funding for many municipalities in the state of Washington. Issaquah is one of them, but we wanted to be thoughtful to those small businesses. So that first quarter, it's a quarterly payment. So the first quarter payment was delayed until July 31st. So those are three mayoral emergency proclamations that were made during the month of March. As the crisis began, it became very clear to us that we could not operate as business as usual, and so we really reorganized ourselves to focus on 5 specific areas. And the senior management team of the city, which normally meets once a week, met each day, Monday through Friday, really to look and talk about these 5 areas. And the leadership in each of the operational areas would report in along with our other senior staff. So we really could touch base on things. Certainly during the month of March into April, things were changing on an hourly basis, not a daily basis. We wanted to make sure that we had all of those individuals talking to one another. So those 5 areas, as you can see: public safety, communications, human services, economic development, and infrastructure. On the public safety side, in Issaquah, we divide fire and police service in 2 different ways. Fire service is provided by Eastside Fire and Rescue. This is an organization that provides fire service not only to the city of Issaquah, but to the city of Sammamish, the city of North Bend, and a number of unincorporated areas which are covered by county fire districts. So they were hit very hard initially, not really knowing what was to come, and we all worked very closely together to make sure that we had the information that we needed, that we were able to share personal protective equipment, PPEs, They were in very short supply initially, but all working together, we were able to make sure that our firefighters and police officers were well taken care of. And as the crisis has continued, fortunately, the work that Eastside Fire and Rescue has seen in the emergency medical side of things has not been as significant or pronounced as it was during the first few weeks of the crisis. But again, we work very closely with them, check in with them, since they are really that first line of response for medical assistance in Issaquah. The Issaquah Police Department, of course, is the other side of our public safety organization. You know, the transition was very stark. All of a sudden, all the things that a police officer would normally do, they didn't do because the people were home. And so we wanted to make sure that our officers, first and foremost, were safe, that the community remained safe. As businesses started to close, we directed the police department to make sure that there were additional patrols in business areas that were once quite active that were less so. We fortunately had no really any reports of problems with that, so that all worked very well. As time passed, the police department found themselves enforcing the stay-at-home order, going to parks, going to other public places, encouraging people to keep an appropriate social distance. Again, no police officer signs up for stay-at-home order enforcement, but they have worked very good over the last several weeks in order to do that. And certainly as the weather continues to improve, that is still a role the police department, along with staff from our parks department, will continue to do as people are going out, just to make sure people are doing so in a safe and responsible way. And then finally, the police department is finding more and more over the last few weeks residents in crisis, and that crisis goes everywhere from family safety issues to mental health issues. More and more we're seeing that, and the police department being asked to respond to residents in crisis. That's also an issue that this task force may wish to talk more about, our issues of mental health. You know, certainly people being cooped up together has caused all sorts of imaginable situations where the Issaquah Police Department unfortunately has had to respond. So that continues, but certainly I think as we look back on this now 2 months or so in to the civil emergency, the work of our police and fire departments have been truly outstanding. The next piece that we knew was so important, and really many of you in your introductory comments really echoed this, was the importance of sharing accurate and timely information. And so we reorganized. We had just created a new website for the city. It was a year plus in the making, and we went to the staff and said, you got to change it all, because we needed to make sure that the information that we were sharing on the COVID-19 response was front and center. So we did that. In the early days, it was coming every day from King County, which serves as the primary health agency for all the jurisdictions within King County, Seattle, as well as all the other cities. So, you know, that was important to share that information. We also didn't want to get into the health information business ourselves. As the council and the mayor worked, we certainly worked social media. We've seen the number of folks following our Twitter, our Facebook pages increase. The mayor, who had done a handful of mayor's newsletters, started doing them a couple times a week, and then I think we're down to more or less once a week now, again, to share information specifically with residents from her about what is going on and what's happening in the community. And then finally, we started doing some videos, and the first few were done with people and people in the room and with nicer production values. And as time has gone on, we are videotaping Skype calls, and the mayor has talked with a variety of city staff about issues and quizzed them about that for the community's awareness. The city council has done their own set of videos answering questions that we've received from residents. So we see communications going forward being very important. We will continue to use social media and videos, and based on some of the comments task force members made at the beginning of the meeting today, perhaps there's an opportunity for us to do even more of this to share correct, vital information with members of the community.
Thank you. Well, I just want to step in here for a second. It's the mayor. It may be that we get to a point as we're implementing things that we may use some members of the task force in videos as well. get the community message out.
The next issue is human services. Prior to the COVID-19 response, we had one city staff member who worried about human service issues. We had recently done a reorganization at the end of last year where that position was placed in our Parks and Recreation Department. And all of a sudden, we found that we were very much in the human services business, and we needed to look for ways and look for resources to help us address these issues. So we began to dragoon different staff members to also get into the human services business so that we could provide the assistance that we needed to residents of our community. Probably the first human services issue we had to respond to was a call that Mayor Pauley received one Saturday afternoon from Dow Constantine, the executive of King County, say, we've leased the Holiday Inn in Issaquah and we're going to use it for a recovery site. And I will not forget this anytime soon, the mayor calling and telling me this on a Saturday afternoon, and we both kind of, said to each other simultaneously, what is a recovery site and what does this mean? So we quickly had to work with the King County Health Department. They moved in very quickly to the site. What they said was going to be a few weeks of renovations turned into a few days of renovations, and they were there with patients in the facility really within, 7 to 10 days, Mayor Pauley, I think it was, of that initial phone call from the county executive. So that site continues to operate. It is, the county has a lease with it through the end of March 2021, and it is used today for individuals who have either tested positive for COVID-19 or are believed to have COVID-19 and have no other safe place to recover, either because of their living situation or their lack of living situation. We worked very closely with the county as the site was occupied. You might recall there were some other sites also initially identified, one specifically in Kent that received a lot of negative publicity. I think the mayor very much at the beginning of this wanted to make sure that we were welcoming to the county, but also wanted to make sure that the safety of all was a top priority, and King County and Executive Constantine really did an excellent job and really responded to every question and concern that we've had. Unfortunately, in the many weeks now that that's been in place, many people probably and it will recover from COVID. We also identified very early.
Wally, we have you.
Shelter were going to be top priorities.
We have you cutting in and out a little bit. I wonder if you might want to turn your video off, and we'll see if that makes a difference.
All right. Let's see. Where do I get looking for video?
The bar on the bottom sometimes disappears. If you drop your cursor down there, the menu pops back up. Actually, you're sounding fine right now if you just want to continue.
Did it go off?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, I'll just, you don't need to see my smiling face. Food and shelter were very initially identified as being important priorities. The mayor went to City Council on March 23rd with a proposal for a $100,000 rental assistance program, which the council approved. We contracted with 2 local nonprofits in Issaquah to provide that rental assistance up to 3 months. We are nearly out of that $100,000. I think the last report I heard, we're in the mid $60,000 or nearly $70,000 of rental assistance provided. The council will have to decide if it wishes to do more once that expires. But I think we're able to make a very immediate difference in people's lives very early on in the process. The mayor also on the food side convened a food summit early on with the representatives of nonprofit organizations, as well as Kathy Lambert, our King County Council member, to talk about challenges that nonprofits were having in getting food, feeding people, and we were able to, I think, work very quickly to help free up some resources for them. Clearly, the Issaquah Food and Clothing Bank is the main nonprofit organization here in town that deals. They have changed their entire operating model, and we work very closely with them to help identify resources as they have done that. And then finally, among the highlights, the mayor asked staff to move forward with a utility bill relief program. So anyone who is having financial difficulties because of the challenges of the COVID-19 crisis has an opportunity for a flexible payment plan. Economic development. The economic crisis is enormous. Trying to sort through what we can do with minimal dollars at this point available has been a challenge. Our economic development manager, Jen Davis-Hayes, has had regular meetings with our partners, the Issaquah Chamber of Commerce, Downtown Issaquah, the Gilman Village Association, as well as the Issaquah Highlands. They have been meeting really on a weekly, bi-weekly basis to talk about how we can assist businesses. And really at this point, it has been to share information, the money that has been available, the PPP, the payroll assistance program, been a federal program. We've tried to work with as many individual businesses as possible to assist them. I think as we move forward, we're going to need to think creatively about other ways to assist those businesses. During the month of April, Issaquah City employees were able to receive a small stipend each day if they spent that stipend at restaurants in Issaquah. So we were able to do that, and I think spent about $65,000 a month to eat in Issaquah. Local
Well, the sound quality, yeah, the sound quality is a little bit in and out again. I'm not sure why, but just wanted to let you know it's breaking up a little bit.
Okay, very sorry. We'll complain Comcast what all over. The distance fees has also been an issue.
So, Wally, I think for the benefit of the group, I might have to finish your slides for you because it's pretty choppy.
Well, you know what I can do is perhaps let me call in and
yes, thank you.
Go from there. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, so while Wally is going to check out and check back in, and that should really improve his sound quality. If you have a question right now and you want to indicate it on the chat side, go ahead and do that because I'm not able to see all of your faces at the same time to see if you're raising your hand or not. If anyone with a question.
Did you want to check in with Janine?
Is Janine on? So there, I didn't see that either. Is Janine on right now?
Yes, Mayor Polly, this is Janine. I am on.
Oh, fantastic.
Apologies
welcome.
to everyone. Thank you so much. I had something unforeseen. I deeply apologize for being late.
Oh, no worries. At what part of the meeting were you actually able to join us?
Just about 6 or 7 minutes ago.
Okay, great. Well, we started off by having everybody introduce themselves to the group and talk a little bit about their background and why they were interested in serving. So I would love to give you that same opportunity to do that as well.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. Again, this is Janine Sanders. I'm so happy to be with all of you. I have been living in Issaquah for the past nearly 6 years now with my family. We have 2 children, ages 10 and 14, attending public middle and elementary school. And we are very much, as a family, involved in so many activities in the Issaquah area, lots of sports. My kids play both basketball, football, lacrosse. I also work in Issaquah as well. So I'm around and about all the time, and just have really enjoyed so much being a part of this community and all the great neighbors and all the great things that Issaquah provides. So wanted an opportunity to be a part of this and helping to determine what it looks like for Issaquah to be reopened gradually and sensibly. So wanted to be a part of that and also contribute a perspective from a family like mine and be helpful in any way. So thank you for the opportunity and looking forward to spending more time with all of you. Mayor Polly, I believe you're on mute.
There you go. I'll get it someday, and then we won't be using this anymore. Janine, thank you. That was very good to hear. You're able to actually, we are recording the meeting today, and you can go back on and watch and hear the introductions from your other task force members as well. And Tina, if you would be able to send her a link so that it's easy for her to find the video tomorrow, that would be great. Thank you, Janine. Welcome. Wally, are you back on? Not sure that he's back in yet. And Wally, can you hear us? So while we're waiting for him to connect, or Joanne, you might be able to help him if he's on mute and can't get off mute, because you might be in control of that. There you go. Hello, Wally.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you perfectly.
Okay, so I'm back on the computer. I wasn't able to get the access code, so let me just try to go through this as quickly as I can. We'll make this available for folks as we move forward. All right, Mayor Paul.
Wally, that is great. The last thing we heard you talk about was the Employee Meal Assistance Program. We didn't hear much after that.
Okay, great. And so Tina, can I get back the presentation?
Yes, we see the presentation.
Great. Food delivery fees. We've been hearing from restaurants about the costs associated with local restaurants using Grubhub, Uber Eats, things like that. And so we are looking at ways to help the community understand the costs associated with that and to see if there are ways that we can help restaurants alleviate some of those delivery fees. And then finally, as I've mentioned, communications, making sure we talk with folks and share the information that's available for businesses. Infrastructure, we continue to focus on making sure that our water, sewer, storm drains, and street infrastructure is in place. We also, of course, maintain parks and facilities. And as spring is going to creeping into summer and things are continuing to grow, we are going to continue to make sure that that remains a priority for members of the community. As we've been moving through this, we've had a look at our budget and the challenges that we're facing moving forward. At this point, we are forecasting about a 20% reduction in revenues in our current year, or almost a $10 million general fund revenue shortfall. As we look at our major revenue sources, for property tax, sales tax, business and occupations tax, and utility tax, where the lion's share of that 10 million is found there. Between 10% property tax decrease, a sales tax decrease about 30%, business and occupation tax 30%, and utility tax perhaps 10%. Other revenues that we receive. So this is significant issues, and the City Council and the Mayor have challenged the staff to try to close that gap as quickly as we possibly can without using our reserves. If we were to continue at the spending rate that we are at, we'd estimate a $9.1 million budget deficit. We have a current fund balance, or basically savings, of $13.7 million, and the mayor and the council has asked that we try to balance the budget as much as possible without dipping into fund balance. So many questions, so much uncertainty that remains moving forward.
Wally, we have a question from Brookie Scholl. And Brookie, before I get to your question, I just wanted to add a few general comments because I'm sure you're also hearing other things in the media. about cities and different cities with different strategies. Each city has its own personality. Each city has its own funding mix that they have. And Issaquah happens to have the mix of funding where we're very reliant on some volatile funding sources. And when we have a downturn, we get hit harder, faster, but we may be able to recover over the long run. So, you know, we're a little different. All the cities are. Some are doing, have taken actions that we probably couldn't take, and we've taken some actions that some other cities wouldn't want to. So just when you're looking at the paper and hearing stories about how cities are, each one has its own flavor. And Berkey, you don't have a question anymore? Okay, thanks. Wally, go ahead.
Great, thank you, Madam Mayor. So the impacts on other funds, we are still looking at our street operating fund, a real estate transfer tax REIT fund, our sustainability fund, which is a compilation of funding from other city funds. We have a school safety zone and a camera that issues tickets for people speeding through that zone. Needless to say, no school, no tickets. So we have to sort through funding issues there, as well as our municipal art fund. Now the slides don't want to move. There we go. Our initial response, a hiring freeze was put into effect. We stopped recruitment for vacant positions. With our vacant positions and the hiring freeze, we thought that was about a $640,000 savings. We were looking at other reductions. We looked at our professional services contracts. And so we began with rounds. We used to call these phases, but the mayor decided recently, because the governor has phases, that she would have rounds. So we're at round one of our general fund expenditure reductions. We asked the department directors to come up with plans, and we move forward with round one with a series of personnel reductions, salary and benefit cost reductions, and work plan and service delivery changes. The phase one summary, $5.9 million of reductions. That is balanced out by $1.1 million of one-time costs associated with those reductions. So that's a net impact of $4.7 million. I've covered that already. That gives you a little bit sense in this slide of the personnel cuts, our general operating, professional services, and some transfers. This slide, again, gives you some more detail. Again, with the details on our personnel side, 22 positions across 8 departments that were laid off, 15 positions were frozen. We're looking to reclassify 2 positions for the remaining staff, a 10-day furlough over the course of the remainder of the year. 5 of those furlough days will be fixed, and 5 of those will be up to the individual employee. We've reduced senior leadership salaries by 7%, and are looking to reduce and eliminate certain employee benefits. This is a list of the positions that we unfortunately had to eliminate, a series of frozen positions, and then we are looking to reclassify some positions. So a total personnel impact, 34.5 FTEs. We estimate that's a loss of 48,000 staff hours to serve the residents and businesses of Issaquah. So this is no small change that we've made, but we feel it's necessary in order to make up for the lost revenue. So as we look for budget next steps, there's some additional rounds that we're going to be looking at. There is some state and federal government assistance that's available. The Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security, or CARES Act, is available, not directly to us, unfortunately. Currently, only cities over 500,000, counties over 500,000 in the 50 states money's been made available to them. The state of Washington has decided to use a portion of its allocation. About $1.1 million will be available to us for funding directly attributed to fighting the COVID virus, not to deal with any economic impacts. King County is also looking at funding as well. There's money that will be available, a small amount of money from the Federal Emergency Management Agency. And the Congress, as many of you may know, is looking at the next round of financial assistance, and we hope that there'll be money for cities in that next round. So the next round for the city will be coming back to the City Council on May the 18th. We have gone to our employee unions looking for salary and benefit concessions. We're going to be looking at some additional reductions in our non-general fund operations. We've gone to the East Side Fire and Rescue, who we contract for services. There is no provision for us to pay less money to them. So we've asked for an opportunity to discuss ways for funding to be reduced there. They're meeting next week, and so hopefully we'll have an opportunity to see if there's some opportunities for savings there, the review of other funds. And so we hope at the end of round two that we're by the end of May that we are done with our reductions for the medium term. Round three would have us looking and monitoring spending through the summer. And then as we begin to prepare our budget for 2021 for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2021, we'll have a better sense of where we need to go for next steps. And that budget process usually begins at the end of September, 1st of October. So let me shift gears a little bit and talk a little bit about the reopening challenges. As the mayor mentioned in her initial comments, we are going to be following the lead of the state of Washington and Governor Inslee and his Safe Start Washington program. The state and the governor have identified 4 distinct phases for reopening, which I'm sure many of you have heard about through the press. This graphic details each of those phases. We are in now the beginnings of phase 1, the number of businesses that are allowed to reopen, essential businesses that have been open continue open. Construction has been allowed to move forward with certain criteria. Landscaping, automobile, RV, boat sales, additional retail sales for curbside pickup only, car washes, and pet walkers. The governor has said that it'll probably be at least 3 weeks between phases. And so we're looking at perhaps the end of May or the 1st of June, moving into phase 2. Still not having gatherings more than 5 people and additional businesses that would be open. You know, from a city's perspective, it's really phase 3 and phase 4 that we see will be the ones that are the ones that involve us the most. And certainly as this task force works, we're going to be looking for your guidance and support to help us sort through phase 3 and phase 4. So as we look specifically at some of those challenges, first and foremost are community health issues. What do we need to be doing as the local government to provide assistance and support to community residents on health issues? Specifically for the city, it's the reopening of our offices, the reconvening of public meetings. This task force is the first public group other than the city council to meet since the COVID-19 crisis. Mayor Polly has set sort of a benchmark moving forward now beginning June 1st, that other boards, commissions, groups that need to meet will begin to meet as long as we can do that in compliance with the State Open Meetings Act. Our parks and recreation facilities, we're beginning to see some of our open space open up as far as our pool, our playgrounds, things like that. We're going to be looking for guidance as to the best way to do that. And then outdoor gatherings, special events, Salmon Days may very well be the first special event that would occur in some way, shape, or form. While we've not made any announcements on the 4th of July, I think the general feeling is that any organized 4th of July events are not going to be able to move forward, but our summer concerts that we normally have in the month of July will likely not be moving forward. But really, I think the mayor and the senior staff are looking for guidance as we are able to have these outdoor gatherings, what makes the most sense. And then certainly the local economy, supporting businesses, taxes, fees, regulations, getting support for that. And then lastly, the strategic plan. As we begin to move forward, the strategic plan was adopted a year ago. This slide shows you the various areas. Some of you were involved through your service on boards and commissions with the creation of this, but mobility, growth and development, environmental stewardship, social and economic vitality, city leadership and services, and infrastructure, important parts of all that too. So Mayor Polly, I apologize for the technical difficulties, but hopefully this gives you and the task force a good overview, and happy to answer any additional questions.
There's a ton of information in there, Wally. Thank you. So I think we did a good job, but we probably created more questions than answered questions. So one observation I wanted to make again about cities is that if you are following along in the media, you will see some cities have made the choice to make decisions to cancel certain things. So some cities are saying no events till September, others are saying no events till October. We've taken a more step-by-step approach until we see the guidance that comes out of the governor's office. We don't necessarily want to go and cancel everything. We want to see what the guidance is and then work with the task force to see if we have a way to still provide a summer recreation program, an outdoor event, or salmon days. So at this point in time, we have what we call decision points, where 6 weeks prior to an event, there'll be a cutoff date that says, if we don't have a way of talking and figuring out how to do it, then it will be canceled. So we're a little different than a lot of the other cities out there. We're doing a wait and see approach. Let's be thoughtful and methodical and see what we can offer the community, because the community is starving for things to do. And anyway, that was our one approach. So thank you, Wally. We're entering the next phase of our meeting, which is sort of the roundtable portion, and where we will be talking about what folks might like to see in the task force work plan. Let's see. I'm just going to check back in with my administrative team. What I had hoped would happen at this time is, and I'm not sure if it's Tisha or Joanne, but that somebody would be able to share their screen. Oh, there's a Tina. I saw Tina smile. Not sure. Somebody should share their screen so that we can capture all of the ideas. Oh, fabulous. She's already got a template. That's amazing. Thank you, Tisha. And what we'll do is we'll go around the room and I will ask. If you don't have anything that you want to add at this point in time, this is fine. But if you've thought of things while that you're bringing into the meeting or that you heard today, let's capture those ideas here. So I'm going to go back to scroll through here. So Tisha's described. I don't see any particular questions. Is anybody interested in identifying themselves on the chat line as wanting to throw some topics up on the board? Because I can't really see all your hands and faces at one time. So if I've got somebody who would like to start, that would be great. And Wally, if you have some potential ideas for consideration, please feel free to throw them out there as well. Oh, we got Mike Brennan wanting to jump in, followed by Jason. So Mike, please unmute yourself.
I think I got it right this time. So thank you. So just real quick, that was a tremendous amount of information. So I appreciate that going out so quickly. So just when you think about the response, I think about categories that we should be kind of trying to capture and organize around. And I think the city has already done some of that around economic recovery and how do we support small businesses, individuals that are in kind of economic crisis, and what are the things that the city can do to help there. There's this bigger kind of community health, I think, notion where, I mean, there's a lot of information that's been pushed out about COVID-19 prevention and et cetera. Are there other things, and I think, Mayor, you're just talking about kind of major events that the city holds each year, but are there things that we can do from a community health standpoint, access to different ways of access safely to the open space and community assets, or even rethinking community activities and maybe not the 4th of July or Salmon Days, but actually creating a whole new event that's really reflective of the environment we have to operate in right now. So maybe there's some people that are very creative around that. The other part is kind of this community involvement, community engagement would be another topic area. It's how do you bring the community together, this kind of spirit of community, we're all in this together. And there are things that the city can act as the convener to bring, the nonprofits, the community service organizations together, because the city can't do all of this. And so it's how do you build that capacity by bringing others to the table to help with that. The other topic that I kind of flagged in my mind, and as I was listening to the city administrator talk about, and the mayor talk about the city impact to the budget, and that's about the health of city government here is another factor that we actually should be thinking about, because the city government plays a huge very important local role in helping us all navigate through this. And obviously, the task force is critical to that. And then the last topic area that I thought about, and I think Ron Fall mentioned this when he was introducing himself, is after COVID-19, it's going to be different, and trying to understand what's going to be different when we get through this, and then how does the city position itself to be in a good place to actually succeed in what will be this kind of a bit of a new environment that we're living, working, recreating in. So just off the kind of, again, trying to think about what are some major categorical areas that we try to capture some of the thinking under, and then maybe prioritize from there.
Mike, thank you. You started with sort of the outcome that you were looking for, and that's our subject. And then we get to flesh out underneath how we might get that outcome. So I appreciate that. I think that's really good. And just one thing I'd like to have the group remember too is that as we move through these next phases of the governor's reopening, we all don't get to enjoy freedoms as they come back. And Grace knows this very well. There's going to be segments of our population that either have pre-existing conditions, they have asthma, they are older, and they're not going to be able to go and do the things that we get to do. So I just want to make sure that in our planning, we don't forget that the governor's phases don't help everybody. Some people will be in this for much longer, and we have to think about isolation and depression and how do we help them and how do we build a network. So Mike, that was fantastic. I am going to go to Jason, if you want to unmute.
Well, hello again, everybody. And real quickly, just to build on what Mayor Polly said, as far as our vulnerable communities, if everyone I'm sure has kind of heard about the Swedish model right now. And regardless of the controversy around it, even the director of epidemiology there had made the comment that the one thing that they could have done a lot better was protect their vulnerable populations. And I think all of us have seen the stats and statistics saying, again, this unfortunate disease is particularly troublesome for elderly people. I believe even in King County, it's like 52% are over the age of 80. So again, to the mayor's point, we are going to open up in phases according to the guidelines that we're given, but it's important to remember, again, that some people will still have to, unfortunately, self-isolate, but not to the detriment of the entire community or economy. I really appreciate Wally's presentation, the city staff that worked on it, as far as communication. I think that's imperative to what we do. The health officials at the federal level, whether it's Dr. Fauci, Dr. Birx, or whether it's right here in King County, Dr. Duncan, have done a very good job. There's no doubt about it. Unfortunately, because the science is moving day in and day out, which is what science does, is sometimes it leads for them to backtrack. So the idea of masks, and what that does is it creates confusion amongst the public. It creates mistrust. And not to say that the doctors aren't doing a fantastic job, but it's almost like a little dent in their armor. I think as the city moves forward, we want to be very careful that the information we're putting out is almost as solid as we can make it. What do we know exactly about this disease? There's hopeful things that everyone's looking at, whether it's therapeutics, antivirals, even the UV studies. But they're so ambiguous that it's not really information that would be appropriate to be putting out if we have to call it back in 2 weeks. It just dents the credibility of the city. Also want to be looking at sustainable things. Unfortunately, the likelihood of this returning in waves, like most pandemics, is high. So what can we do moving forward so we don't have these rolling shutdowns every 3 to 4 months for the next 2 years?
Right.
Our economy won't be able to sustain it. And we really need to work in that space of what can we do? What can we learn about this, most likely this first infection, that we can do differently in the second? Everybody, every state, every country has gotten some things right and obviously have gotten some things wrong. We need to look very carefully at the things we can improve on for our sustainability in the coming months. I do like the idea Issaquah has always been a little bit of an outlier, and I like the idea of not canceling things prior to knowing. It's important that, I think, in my opinion, is you leave the dates, and to the mayor's point, once we get closer, you make the call. By canceling something 3 months in advance, it can create despair. I mean, what do we know that we don't know? Why are they canceling salmon days in October? And vice versa. We don't want to say, oh, this event's going to go on and then have to cancel it. So I think we just leave the calendar alone and just take it step by step. And then finally, to build on what Mike and Ron had mentioned, I don't think the new normal has to be awful. I've been talking about this with small businesses, with my dad. If we're a healthier society on the other side of this, that's great. People were to wear masks when they had colds, that would be wonderful. So maybe we can have a lower influenza death rate in the coming years. So again, the new normal doesn't have to be this scary thing. And I think when we talk to the community, we should explain that. The new normal could be a better normal than what was pre-COVID-19. Again, I don't know what it looks like. I don't think any of us truly do. But the idea of just keeping every pot, it doesn't have to be negative.
Jason, that's great. And thank you for that point. That's sort of coming through in many of my conversations at different levels of government too, that we can't paint this as all negative. There's going to be an upside. There's going to be some things that improve. So thank you for putting that out there. That's really good. I have got Nina up next.
That unmute button moves when you go to click it.
Tell me about it.
I don't know if I have a new category here, Tina, or if it goes under post-recovery, but one thing I wanted to bring up was identify opportunities. And it, as a for instance, is this in certain circumstances an opportunity for a change that we would not be able to have implemented before, you know, so it's been compressed as the recovery occurs? Do we have a different direction that we didn't have? So
that is excellent. Thank you. I've heard that phrase as never waste a good disaster, right? There's an opportunity here, and there can be something that we had wanted to do, and we're going to do it now because we have the opportunity to do it. So thank you, Nina. Great points. I'm going to go to Brookie.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. One thing I'd like to add to the communications piece is I feel like now everything is kind of grassroots out there, like what restaurants are open, what restaurants are doing this. And but when we are able to get to those next phases, it'd be great if we could help the small business or all the businesses in Issaquah with that kind of a central repository of, you know, these are green light, these are still red light. I don't know exactly how to do that, but I would love to help them get back on their feet quicker by just having a one-stop shop that we point people to. Thank you.
Excellent point, Brookie. Thank you very much. We've been focusing on only reporting on the businesses that do have limited hours. And we know there's some others that are getting ready to go. That's a great point. Shashi would like to chime in.
Yeah, hi. Looking at the history of pandemics, we had last one 100 years ago, and we are normal after that. So I'm 100% sure we will be normal. The only change could be probably like we could take influenza shot every year. We may have to take that kind of stuff or something, but I'm very, very hopeful we will have that very soon. Today I heard on the news we can enter second phase of the vaccine trial. That's a very good news. We are progressing. And my idea is I was thinking that we have a lot of intercity flow of public. We go for shopping who are on the boundaries. For example, 1 mile I'm away from Sammamish. So I can go for shopping there and come back. So I think we should collaborate. We should have collaboration with our next door cities so that we can work hand in hand. In turn, they could have similar collaboration with their next door cities so that we all are at the same page and we evolve out of this at the same time. Secondly, I got an email yesterday from University of Washington, Madison. They have capacity to do 4,000 immunity tests, antibody tests per day. That's very good. And our population of Issaquah is just 40,000. So considering that, if we have any restriction, we could take one person from one household, because if they're living together in the same setting and have had no problems, or if all have had some kind of cold like symptoms and recovered from it, there is very good chance that they have antibodies. I think I have antibodies because I think I'm exposed to somebody who came sick to one of my classes on 27th of Feb. It's after that very soon I'm shut out, but I did go out very carefully later. We have to educate our community, no doubt, but antibody tests should be done. Collaboration with our next door cities can be done. And let me see, I had written down, because this is my first experience with this kind of meeting, so forgive me for that, please. And yeah, I wanted to talk about the subclinical infection. So we are talking, we know already we have carriers. Now, I would recommend everybody, and we should educate our public who didn't know, because I didn't know till last month. There's something called as typhoid Mary. I think you all know Mary was name of a person in early 1900s, around 1930 or so, and she was carrier of typhoid bacteria. And she used to work. She came from Ireland. I think she used to work as a cook in the affluent families, and people would get typhoid, and some of them would die. It remained a mystery. She was put in jail. She was put in isolation. All that happened. Finally, after she died, a doctor did a lot of tests on other people and found out there were a lot of people having same thing. And that's when we came to know there's something called as carrier. So now carrier is one who will have the virus and is capable of spreading the disease maybe for a longer time. But there's second thing, which is subclinical infection. That means unknowingly we have undergone some kind of infection. We never had any symptoms, and we may be immune by now. So I would recommend that we start doing the antibody test as soon as possible for our families around, and that information should be given out, and how they can do and all. I think we all can together make that out, and so that would be very good direction to go. Other thing I found, I saw our governor Jane's list phases, all the phases I read about, and they have said between two phases, we should have a gap of 21 days. And that is based on the longest incubation period known. But that is actually not the longest incubation period. There is a report of 27 days, which is considered like an outlier. Initially, WHO thought this is secondary exposure, this second exposure. So that means it was second infection. Once they were positive, then they became infected again. But we don't know. There's lots unknown about this novel virus. Novel means new, that's it. So I think we should have our phases transition period, not 21, but 28 days minimum at this point. And secondly, I think we should have 0 cases during that period. Only then we are ready to go forward. If we're still getting new cases, then I don't think we are at the stage we should open anything more.
Shashi, I'm gonna thank you for that. I want to recap a couple things there. I think in our communication strategy, which we've been told we need to work on, we're to some degree going to be interpreters between scientific information and a practical guidance to the community. We also have to be really clear to differentiate between ongoing evolving information and a fact. And so that's another piece that's confusing for the community. So it is going to be challenging. I'm going to go next to Sam. Sam, if you have something you'd like to join in, let's hear it.
Yeah, so really quickly, maybe offline or in the next meeting, I'd love to know what some of the other cities are doing with similar task forces. That's it.
Thanks, Sam. And Wally, I just want to let you chime in for a second. You participate in the other city meetings. That's information you'd be able to bring next time, correct? Sort of, like in a general format?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, fabulous. And I like the idea of, nobody knows where a town boundary is. So we are in this with the other cities, especially our next door neighbors. I am not seeing anybody comment, but I'm just going to do a quick shout out to a few people because we're approaching our time. Marisol, is there a comment you want to add? And there's no worries if the answer is not today. So, Marisol.
I do have a couple of comments, but I know the time is getting closer, so I will be very quick. On the communication piece, I just want everybody to remember that for a lot of people whose, is English is not their first language, it's very hard to understand what's going on. And also to be able to follow guidelines. So we have to be careful at the time we do any type of communication that we do it clearly and simple. And also, if there's any chance that we can, provide translation or subtitles to any of our messaging, that we, look at simplifying things, not making it more difficult. And then my other comment will be the community health. Just to add that the vulnerables, to also think about the people who have not access to healthcare. Especially right now, it's really hard for people to go to a doctor, and telemedicine is not open for everybody. So that's a very high issue right now, with people feeling sick and not reporting it because they don't know what to do. And, cases just rising because of that reason. And I think that everybody is aware. If not, just to share that the one of the highest population that is being affected is the Hispanics, and there are many reasons why is that, but just wanted to comment those things.
Marisol, that's excellent. Thank you very much. Pavel, do you have anything you'd like?
Just a quick note. So I think one of our priorities should be thinking about getting people safely out of their houses, because people been in their houses for very, very long time. And getting for another month, it's going to be devastating for a lot of families. So, and just a small idea just to throw out there, because now we are allowed to go to churches for the drive-in service. So I'm thinking Issaquah is in a very good position, offering something like drive-in movies, drive-in concerts, and I think people would love it, at least like once or twice a week doing some events like that. It will just to give something positive to people, so get them moving.
Pavel, that's excellent. Did you have some more you'd like to add?
We need to believe in our people. Our people do have common sense.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a common sense that we have to care for our elderly and vulnerable ones. And I think this experience just shows that we just have to probably use today's condition to kind of do it much more efficiently than we've been doing it before. That's all.
Excellent, Pavel. Trish, would you like to unmute and speak to the group?
Yeah, well, I wanted to say, Pavel, working with the Arts Commission, I'm going to think about what you just said. I think that's a great idea. And then Mary Lou, because I know that I think you had a hard stop at 5:30. I'm just going to add one more thing, is that one of your council members was bragging you up and saying that Issaquah is the first community, right, in this area that has put together this recovery task force. Is that correct? So that's pretty cool. You have to unmute too.
It's pretty cool, but the idea kind of germinated within the team. It's not Mary Lou waking up in the morning and saying, this is what we need. I have a very strong team that has been watching what has been going on and taking the temperature of the community and the business community. And so it feels like the right time to do this. It doesn't feel too early. It doesn't feel too late. Let's start talking. Thank you. Thank you very much. That is great, Trish. I do have a hard stop, but I'm going to extend it to 5:45. I have a meeting starting at 6 that I need to get ready for, but let's make sure that Grace is up next, followed by Janine, Marlene, and Ron. So Grace.
Hi, awesome. Well, I also had like the idea of like drive-in movies. I just saw that like a lot of people have been like getting creative on the way that they like socially engage with people. And I've seen like people hanging out in parking lots and stuff. And I also saw like this article in Colorado, like it was someone's birthday, so they all drove past the house. And I think that like in those type of community morale boosting type events, you could we could find a way to also support local businesses. So like maybe you buy like takeout and then you eat it with just your household in your own car in some sort of drive-in movie, but it really promotes kind of like salmon days, but like all socially distant where like local vendors all come together, but it's all a takeout like style, some sort of platform like that to boost morale while also supporting local businesses.
That is awesome, Grace. Thank you. Let's go to Janine.
Thanks. I think I would say +1 to many of the comments already made. Totally aligned to a lot of the great points that were made. I'm looking forward to when we have our brainstorming sessions on some of these great aspects that we've already talked about. One area for me that I'm particularly passionate about is communications. And I just wanted to say as a principle, as we communicate out on any of the things that we're recommending, that we also include how we arrived at that or why we made that suggestion, if it was a best practice from a neighboring community or, whatever that reason was. I think it'll be really important and also add to our credibility to provide the why behind the recommendation that was made. So thank you.
Thank you. That's an excellent suggestion. Marlene.
Hi, thank you. A couple of things that I would like to add under community health, just really thinking through what are the mental health resources that we can be providing and making it easier for people to access if possible. I think, hearing about some of the rise in domestic instances is really concerning to me. So really thinking through how we can help people who've been cooped up for too long and really help people find some safe mechanisms there. The other thing that is on my mind as it relates to both economic recovery and health is around, and testing is really around food service workers. So we've talked a lot about our local restaurants and businesses, knowing that a lot of the folks that work in the kitchens and in those businesses may also be folks who don't have as much access to healthcare. I think if we're trying to both keep them safe and the broader community safe, we have to think through what are the plans make sure they feel protected to stay home when they are sick, and also have ways to get tested in the healthcare that they need.
Awesome, Marlene. Thank you very much. And Ron, I know you're sitting as an alternate tonight, but I wonder if there's anything that you've been listening to where you thought there's another point you would like us to add to the table that we're preparing.
And I think testing for antibodies would be a good option. Someone had mentioned that they thought they may have had coronavirus or exposed to it. And for those of us who feel that we may have tackled with coronavirus, it would be nice to know whether or not we have antibodies for it. And second of all, paying attention to our vulnerable senior population by working with our senior centers on a visitation engagement plan. That might look like volunteers put together a booth where seniors could engage with family members, maybe using phones and so on, but at least they could sit across from them and actually see them. And I think that would help boost morale. And they're a very isolated population, I think it would be great for their mental health and for family health. Oh.
Thank you very much, Ron. All of the comments, thank you, Tisha, for capturing all those. That's fantastic. I'm going to have to check out from this meeting to get ready for the council meeting, but there is an open government training refresher. Oh, hang on, let me get Tina on the line. Are we not doing it tonight? I'm looking at your note.
Hi, thank you. This is Tina Eger, City Clerk, and yes, both Deputy Clerk and myself are also off to attend the council meeting. that's to follow. So we would like to break. It's probably a good time to just remind you that your next meeting is next Thursday at 4 p.m. That would be May 14th. And I will send out the video link so that you all know where our archives are, and look for our agendas that are distributed to you. If there's any information to review in advance, it will be posted there. I will compile some open government training materials for you, and I'll distribute those. If you have questions, I'll give you my contact information, and we can hop on the line individually, and I can walk you through those items. Thank you.
Tina, thank you very much. And thank everybody for coming today. Some familiar faces and some new faces and some great conversation. You guys are super helpful. We'll talk to you guys next week. Thank you, Tina, Tisha. Thank you all. Have a good night.